We should start because I see that the clock is ticking. We have 15 minutes. Welcome to this reporting session. This is to report from the sessions of the GlobalArctic project, but also this is to have a step forward, how to share our thoughts and we will invite you to contribute. The GlobalArctic project was launched at this platform 2 years ago, but the story started a bit earlier. It was 2006 when the Northern Research Forum went global, and particularly when its Open Assembly 2011, having the title Our Ice-Dependent World, started to discuss on not only the Arctic but also the two other poles of the globe. Behind are, of course, global impacts in the Arctic, pollution, rapid climate change, but also mass-scale utilization of resources, colonialism, but also immaterial values, immaterial things such as innovations in political and legal arrangements, what we have had and what we have seen in the Arctic within the last decades. The GlobalArctic is neither an organization with heavy structure nor a structure for fundraising. It's a forum and process for clear thinking and thinking across disciplines and beyond the nation-state system. We are an international network with logo and website of about 40 universities, research institutions, and think tanks. We are an ecosystem as a means to gain better understanding of the globalist Arctic, meaning not only global impacts in the Arctic region, but also how the globalist Arctic has worldwide implications and influence the rest of the world. So we combine Arctic studies and global studies. Implementing connectivity, we are able to come together and build networks by using modern technology, cooperating with other networks and leaning on our expertise and social relations. We are open-minded and have a broad scope, and we offer a destructive way of thinking out of a box, where technology is only a means, not an end. And this is what we would like to share today. And these are, we have each of the panelists, 3 of them, have one highlight. And these highlights are coming from the sessions. And then we hope that we have a few minutes for your questions and comments. The first is Adrian Vlhkov from European University in St. Petersburg. And you have something to say something about inclusivity. Please.
Thank you. This finally works. Sorry, I'm going to be a bit critical, but I will try to keep this as short as possible. Actually, I've been coming to various Arctic forums and gatherings and discussions for many times during the recent years. And the thing I'm really shocked and frustrated about is that the situation that we have in such gatherings and forums and decision-making processes. And the problem is how often and on how many occasions numerous actors are being included from discussion, from decision-making, and from action-taking. Just to give you a few examples. For example, the Russian side. It's half of the Arctic. Russia is half of the Arctic. And have you seen many Russians on this stage speaking apart from one governor coming forward with official speeches. Inviting one governor does not make the trick. Actors of that size should be included fully in the discussions and decision making. Or another example. I'm a young person, young researchers. Have you seen a lot of young researchers speaking from this stage recently during this conference? Giving the reduced conference fee doesn't do the trick. Young people should be invited and taken as full-scale actors on those processes. And please don't take it like I'm criticizing only the Arctic Circle conferences. Of course not. It's everywhere, such exclusion of certain actors or of certain people. For example, the Russians, the young people, the non-Arctic states, or should I say not enough Arctic states. It's omnipresent in the Arctic discussion, in Arctic research, in Arctic decision making, and so on. That's what the Global Arctic project does. We strive to bridge that gap, to include all the possible actors in the discussion, especially those who are often excluded from that. And here we have held several sessions, and we will have one after this plenary, so we have the last chance, trying to get floor and give voice to as many actors and as many voices as possible. Both in particular Arctic and non-Arctic states, young researchers and experienced researchers, artists, journalists, people representing all possible genders, and so on. And such priorities are the core of the Global Arctic project and of the Global Arctic approach. So going beyond ordinary boundaries and most in particular beyond those nation-state borders is our top priority. It's both in global Arctic activities, in all of our panels, in different activities, and actually the Arctic has truly become global. You cannot ignore that fact anymore. And during one of the sessions, I have made a joke how easily this hall is broken into two or into many, how easily those borders between halls and between audiences are created. But breaking such borders and such walls is much harder. So that's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrian. And then we have Mias Christensen from Stockholm University. And so we are talking about arts, culture, and climate change. Please.
Exactly, thank you. The session we had yesterday, Arts and Cultures of Arctic Climate Change, organized by this network, GlobalArctic, was the only session during this assembly that talked about artistic interventions, their significance, and issues related with humanities. And putting those issues next to economic and political issues is very important, and I think in that way the network did a great job. What I would like to highlight in my 2 minutes is, as we all know, the Arctic has been in the media limelight over a decade now due to the melting of the ice, and its global significance has been established. But what we get from the global media, international news media, or what I call fast media, are very limited. Oftentimes, national, international, global issues, security issues are invoked, brought up in relation to certain agendas, and issues related with cultures, humans, artistic interventions that are coming from the region are oftentimes not making the headlines. So in relation to that, the point I would like to make is that it is increasingly more important to have other forms of interventions than the global big media, what I call slow media, museums, exhibitions, art in all its variations, music, films and documentaries to find their ways into the public sphere so that we can have the Arctic and Arctic change be communicated and conveyed to the global audience in all its entirety and not just the limited ways in which we hear about the Arctic and Arctic issues in certain frames through the international news media.
Thank you, Majas. And then we have Matthias Finger from EPFL. And you have been developing the matrix for the Global Arctic.
Thanks, Lassi. I will be very short. so that we still have time for discussion. But talk a few words about how we go forward. So as Lassi already said, what we offer is some structured way of thinking about the global Arctic. The Arctic is the result of global forces. What happens here affects the globe as a whole. You can see these 4 dimensions. I will not go into the boxes. You can read the things. It's the resources dimension and the whole economics of it, the Earth system of which the Arctic is a crucial part. Peoples and culture we have just heard about, and then of course cross-cutting against across everything is the question of governance of all of this. So each time from the 2 perspectives, from the global to the Arctic, from the Arctic to the global. Where do we go from here? We go from here in terms of research. We are currently in the process of publishing a Global Arctic Handbook, which will be out next spring. And we are submitting research proposals with people from all over the world, and especially the Arctic, along this matrix. And this is news. We are now launching a MOOC, a massive open online course on the global Arctic along the matrix you see here. Now, the invitation to you is that if you see yourself somewhere in this matrix, or if you see, or better, across this matrix, linking these different boxes, do contact us and become part of our research and education endeavor. Thanks.
Thank you, Matthias. So this is an invitation for you to contribute. We have time for a few questions, comments. There should be 2 mics, I hope. There are the mics. Are there? So is there anybody who would like to raise a question or give a comment? I don't see. Yes, please. Can we have the mic? Can you stand up?
Hi, my name is Michaela Stith, and I'm studying abroad here with the Student International Travel, or Training. And I was wondering, to what extent do you think that these global leaders, globalized governments should be taking part in the governance of the Arctic, and to what extent should they step back and let the Arctic lead itself, especially considering the difference in power and money, capital that these different actors have access to?
Okay, thank you. I ask the panelists to remember this, because if I will take another, if there is another question or comment. Please. Be brave. Hands up. Where? Okay. Mic there.
Yeah, just there in the corner.
Please.
Hi, I'm Nia. I'm also studying here, and I appreciate the comment on youth engagement and how that's missing from the dialogue surrounding the Arctic. So I want to know, how can we bring young scientists and the youth into the conversation about the Arctic?
Thank you so much. There is room for 1 more question, comment there. Okay, please, Mike. Here, can you? Yes, please.
My name is Alison, and I'm a painter, artist, and upstairs you will find an exhibition of my work about Chukotka. I was very interested to hear from Andrea, as one of the few Russians who is speaking. I've been looking for Russians all the time to be able to communicate my concern about the garbage strewn throughout Chukotka. Maybe Andrea and I can have a dialogue afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I will turn to the panel. Who will start? Okay, Andrea.
Okay, thank you. I will be really short about answering to last questions. I will be also very interested to talk about the Russian problems and also about the problems of young scientists bringing our position there, because I really think that if we don't take any action ourselves, if we don't struggle for that place on those stages here, in other Arctic conferences, if we don't take that, I don't wish to say by force, but just to approach everyone and ask for an opportunity to speak and to be taken as a part of that, and maybe creating other structures or working inside the framework of the GlobalArctic project, nothing will happen, because you see half of the audience are now outside of the hall, not listening to what we are discussing, and that's not a normal situation. We should really change that.
Okay, thank you, Maija. Oh, okay, Matthias first.
Yeah, just on your question, I think we have a very actually pragmatic approach about the situation. I mean, the big powers, the nation states, they are players in the Arctic, and we have to, they have to be part of the solution, but we also have to acknowledge that historically they have rather been part of the problem.
Thank you. Then, Maija?
Yeah, that's the one that works. Well, from in terms of how these are being communicated to the larger public, I can say that, and I second what you said about having multiple partners and multiple interests, but the flow is sort of top-down. Certain voices, certain nations are heard more, and we need more bottom-up, both in terms of governance and how these issues are communicated to the global public. Since we're out of time, I'm not going to say anymore.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much joining us, and let's thank the panelists.